Hey everybody, my name is Angela. I am a YouTuber and video podcaster here on this channel. I host the video podcast Honey and Hustle here on YouTube, but in order to host it on audio streaming platforms, I have to strip the audio and post them separately on Anchor, which is my hosting platform. In that space, I really haven't felt like I'm creating a seamless video podcast experience because there are often times when I catch myself in the edit saying things like, hey, if you can see what I'm holding up, or referencing something that the person is wearing. And so that can kind of create a disconnect between the listener and the conversation. And my podcast is a conversational style podcast. So I want people to be able to kind of dip in and out. So if they're, working on something, if they're cleaning up around the house, if they're taking a walk, and maybe they do want to primarily listen, but have the option to view and tune in and just kind of see me and my guests having the conversation as well. I want that to be an option. One of the things that I really feel is amazing about video podcast is not only are they a listening experience, but they are a viewing experience. So it becomes less of me talking at you and you just kind of tuning into me and a guest having a conversation very casually about topics that are of interest to you. And so it becomes more like a talk show, right? Something more interactive, something more engaging. And I'm really excited that Spotify has decided that video podcast will be their latest addition to their upgrades for podcast hosts and producers. Recently this year, they've made a lot of investments into their podcasting aspect of their app and interface, but video podcasting is just the most recent. So they started with Green Room, which is kind of like a Clubhouse live audio drop-in type interface that I'm assuming both music artists and podcasters can take advantage of. Then they started to add Q&A type feature where podcast hosts can ask questions and their listeners and audience can answer, and also have real-time polls associated maybe with an episode or just in general that they can engage with, kind of like the YouTube community feature. So video podcasting is kind of the next step that they've implemented, which has been incredible for me to see because now I feel a little more welcome in that space. I've been able to connect with a lot of podcasters on Twitter and LinkedIn, so that's been really fun to engage with people that way, and a really great way to disseminate the show and find my target audience and people who would ideally be interested in the conversations that I'm having and hosting on the show. So to create a seamless experience, I think has been awesome. However, I don't feel like it's enough for me to leave YouTube for it. One thing that YouTube will always have over a lot of podcast platforms is its searchability function. So having a way to organically have people discover podcast episodes on the YouTube platform has been incredible for me, and I would love to see something like that implemented into Spotify's platform, both on mobile and on desktop. Another thing that I really am interested to see that's whether or not Spotify will implement is right now in the free version of Spotify, you can download podcasts to listen to them offline. So if you're on a long car ride, if you have some deep work that you're trying to do and stay focused on, if you're going on a hike or just doing something for a long period of time, you don't have to worry about your data rates or anything like that because you can listen to the podcast offline. So I'm interested to see if the same will be true for video podcast or if you'll need a premium membership for that as you do with music. Another thing that I'm really hoping to see that Spotify will continue to do is create an ad platform similar to YouTube AdSense. So some of you may know, please don't put Joe Rogan's name in the comment section. I'm asking nicely. But people like Joe Rogan, people like the host for Call Her Daddy, I think that's what it's called. And my guy, Ricky T, awesome comedian and actor from Instagram, he and Denzel Dion, Spotify invested exclusively in them to create a podcast that is hosted exclusively on Spotify. So seeing them make direct investments in podcast creators is very, very positive and just amazing to see that they're very serious about coming out strong as the front runner for podcasters. Apple Podcasts hasn't done this yet. Google Podcasts hasn't done this yet. Insert other podcast listening service hasn't done this yet. And I think Spotify knows that they're still early in the game and there's still a long way to go in terms of the impact that podcasts can have on digital media. So I'm excited to see this integration between audio and visual content become even more streamlined across these platforms, and super excited to see what's next with Spotify. So if you're new to video podcasting, maybe you've been hosting remotely, or you're thinking about hosting remotely, or you've been on a few video podcasts and you want to start one of your own, I hope this gives you some perspective into how Spotify video podcast can play into your podcast marketing strategy. That's it for me for today in this video. If you liked it, or if you want to hear more content about video podcasting, visual storytelling, owning and running a creative business, I would really, really appreciate it if you gave this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to my email list to get first access to all of my videos. That's it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.